Hi folks, this is Scott with SimpleSpider.com. Today we'll be installing Red Hat 6 on Oracle's VirtualBox. We're going to come in here to the VirtualBox Manager and we're going to click New. We're going to type in Red Hat 6 64 base as our name for this new install. It's going to automatically choose the version for us, but if it didn't choose the version for us, we could just pick the version. Based on the name, it figured out that it was Red Hat 64-bit, and then the type was Linux. We're going to say next. We can choose memory, anywhere from a gig to as much memory as you want to use for this instance. In my case, I have plenty of memory, so I'm going to go ahead and put 4 gigs of memory on this instance. And we're going to choose to create a virtual drive now. And we're going to take the default VirtualBox disk image. And we're going to dynamically allocate that disk so that the disk isn't all allocated at once. We can just take a smaller portion, and we're going to set this to 50 gigs of space and say create. Once it creates the instance, we're going to go into settings, and we're going to go into system, and we're going to choose how many processors we want. In this case, I'm going to say I want 2 processors. We're going to choose the disk, so I'm going to remove this empty CD-ROM ISO image area, or the DVD, whichever one it is. I'm going to go ahead and remove that, and I'm going to add in my ISO disk that I've already downloaded. In this case, I have a Red Hat 6 64-bit Update 6 downloaded. I'm going to switch the network from NAT to bridge, but that's up to you. We'll go over in one of the other lessons NATing versus bridging. In this case, I'm going to use bridge. So I'm going to say OK here. And I'm just going to go ahead and start this instance. I've already checked this disk, so I'm going to go ahead and skip this, but if this is the first time you've downloaded the disk, it's a good idea to go ahead and check it to make sure you're not trying to install from a bad disk. And just skip past the welcome screen, choose English as the language that I'm going to use. I'm going to choose the keyboard language, which is also English. Basic storage device is fine for this install. I'm going to go ahead and discard any data on this area. I'm going to go ahead and give this a name right now. And I'm actually going to go in and configure the network, but I'm not going to do anything more to the network than choose my device and say edit. And I'm actually going to say connect automatically. That way it's turned on by default. I'm going to let it run DHCP, which is fine for me. So I'm going to go ahead and say apply and close. And that's going to activate the first Ethernet device on my system. I only have one Ethernet device on the system, so that's fine. I'm going to say next. It's going to ask me for what time zone. I'm just going to say next. This is my current time zone. I'm going to choose a strong password. If you choose a weaker password, it'll actually come up and tell you, hey, you've chosen a weak password. Are you sure you want to do that? And I'm going to say, and this is for the root account. I'm going to go ahead and say next. I'm going to say go ahead and use all space. I'm going to take a look at this disk space and how it's being allocated, but I already know how it's going to be allocated, and it is going to be the way I want it to be. But I'm going to go ahead and say review it anyway and say next. And I see here that it gave me 4 gigs of swap, and the rest of the 50 gigs has been set to the root device, and it's given me a 500 meg boot device, which is all exactly how I'd want this set up. And I'm going to say next. It says, do I want to format this? And the answer is yes, I do want to format it, and I want to write these changes to disk so it'll partition it for me. Here I can choose a bootloader password. I'm going to go ahead and set the bootloader password. That's always a good idea to have a bootloader password set automatically so that not anybody can just come on the system and make changes. Say OK, say next. And here it's going to, by default, it's going to set the basic server. That's going to have stuff in it that I honestly don't need. And as I'm using this as a base minimal install, I'm going to go ahead and set this to a minimal install, and then I'll add the software that I need as I need it. Even the basic stuff has more than we really need for some of the software installs. And I'm going to go ahead and say next. So with Red Hat, it's really easy to add packages later and add systems. This tells me that by using a minimal install, I'm going to install 248 packages. So this will take a couple minutes for this to run, but it shouldn't take too long on this system that I'm running here. With Red Hat, you actually have to have a subscription to install packages and to download your software. There's a couple other versions of Linux that don't require that. Your CentOS, your Oracle Linux, a couple of those other ones don't, but an enterprise version of Linux, the Red Hat enterprise version of Linux does require a subscription base. So if you don't have a subscription base, using Red Hat enterprise Linux will be a little bit hard for you to get the packages that you need installed. There'll be more work for you to do. Let me see here now that it finishes up and it's finalizing the package installation now. So it doesn't really take too long to install it if I stick with the minimal install. And I'll always, from a security perspective, not just install anything on the system, just keep it minimal, shut down basic services, and then just add the packages that I need. So this works great for Oracle database, application servers, all sorts of software that we run. And it's really simple to add in packages as we go. And it comes to a completed screen, and we'll just go ahead and reboot now. Because I didn't install a desktop, it's not going to come up with a actual desktop, so it'll be command line commands to run on this instance. It's easy to install a desktop on top of here. We can run a yum install group desktop, and we'll have a desktop installed. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And right now I only have a single user, the root user, but I can add one later. And I'm going to go ahead and quickly check to make sure that my DHCP worked, and that I can see here that I have an IP address 192.168.126. I can also do a yum list to see what I've got installed on the system. And that's all for installing the instance. Go out to the website. We'll have some tutorials on installing different packages, different applications out on simplespider.com, or you might be watching this video as step 1 or step 2 of an installation process that you're already watching. Thanks for watching.